Hey everybody, today we're going to be tying the spoon minnow fly. Here it is, a couple different color options, just a ultra suede tail and a hard body. I'll show you how we put together. First step, I'm going to make a stencil. When you're cutting ultra suede, the material moves around a lot, shifts, and so trying to draw a pattern on it can be a little bit challenging. And so we use sandpaper. You can make a stencil for the appropriate size hook that you're going to be making your fly on. And I'm just making a stencil here on some 220 grit sandpaper. I'm going to cut that out. And then you can keep that, obviously, label it for the size hook. The one we're doing today is size 1. Gamakatsu B10S. It's a great hook for this fly, and it's a good all-around bait fish pattern. So there's my stencil. Gonna clean it up a little bit. Use some old scissors because you will dull them. And then I'm just marking on there what size it is. You can lay your stencil down on your ultra suede material. I usually do these in bulk with these bait fish tails with a nice straight cut. Works out pretty nice. You won't end up with a tremendous amount of waste. You can see I've just finished one there, and then I'm going to turn my stencil around, lay it next to that one. Again, just to minimize the amount of waste of that ultra suede. Because these flies, you know, you've got a lot of glue, super glue and epoxy and dry times with paint. I usually do them in bulk, so you're going to want to do, you know, a dozen or so at a time. Got a little cutting wheel. You can get at Walmart or Hobby Lobby for about $15. Cutting table. Measure, grab a straight edge, and you can make pretty quick and very accurate work with your cuts of your tails. You can save a lot of money if you've got extra time cutting tails versus buying pre-cut ones. Also, we have ultra suede in a lot of the popular fish catching colors rather than trying to color them with markers, which will bleed over time. You see there's my finished tail. Next step here, I've got just like a Lee press-on nail, acrylic fingernails. You can pick different sizes and shapes for different hooks you're using. You see here I'm bending it out. A lot of them come curled. And so I have flattened that out. I'm laying it on my measuring table from my model that I have there so I can get the length and the bodies accurate. If you get a size and length that you like that swims properly, keep that model and then just duplicate it over and over again. But it does help to have a little cutting board or pad like this, so you don't have to just eyeball everything. You can get it very, very exact. And you see I'm going to have the fly and the tail lined up side by side. I'm going to get them very even there. And then that ultra suede, when it touches super glue, it adheres almost instantaneously. There's almost like a exothermic reaction. And you can see I've got a nice blank right there with the nail and the ultra suede attached to one another. So now I'm just going to lay a base of thread down all the way back to the barb. You want that thread to go back a little bit because my tail is actually going to adhere and curl down slightly down the bend. I'm adding 30 thousandths wire here right in the middle. You want to get that lead situated right in the middle of that the main hook shank in order for that fly to fall and flutter and swim properly. What I'm doing here is taking some pliers and I am flattening that let out to give nails that we end up putting on this fly a little bit more of a flat plane so it will adhere better. So I'll put some thread on to secure it, flatten it, and then cover it with more thread to ensure that the body won't spin on the hook. And once I'm done, I'm also evening out with the thread the gap between the lead and the eye of the hook. Again, so when you are gluing your body down, it'll have a nice flat plane to adhere to, and you won't have any lumps or bumps or funny angles. Loctite control gel is great because you can kind of glob it on a little bit. I'm placing that right on top on the center, and the tip of the nail, if you've got real pointy ones, you can cut the ends blunt, and you can see I'm just right up behind the eye of the hook. Kind of turn it around, make sure it's nice and straight. If not, you might have to pop it off and readjust. What I'm doing now is I'm putting a little glue down. I'm going to cut a scrap piece of ultrasuede, roughly the shape of the inside of the nail, to lay on top. This is so the other nail, the top nail and the bottom nail, will adhere together. You'll see that bottom nail go in here in a second. My piece was a little long there, so trimmed it up so it wouldn't crowd the eye. That's what it should look like underneath. You're going to take like one or two smaller of a size nail, the same shape, and it's going to snap right on top. You see I folded it out again to eliminate some of that curl. I'm going to put the glue on the inside of it. And so they're kind of going to be the outside of the nail is going to be on top, and the inside that you'd glue to put on your finger would be there. And you can see how once I get it situated, it kind of snaps into place right there. Just kind of folds down. And with all that glue and that ultrasuede in between, everything is going to lock into place almost instantly. And if you've got any lumps and bumps or gaps between your nails, we're going to fill that in with epoxy on our next step. Sometimes if you need to, you can clamp that front piece down while the glue dries, or if you have an accelerant, you can spray that on and it'll lock it right into place. For this step, we're using 5-minute epoxy. We're going to finish the fly with a 2-ton 24-hour epoxy because that will not yellow over time. It's a good clear coat to help add to the life of your fly. I cut the tops of the plungers so I can ensure that I have very equal parts of the resin and the hardener with any epoxy that I use. Get some cheapo throwaway plastic brushes at Walmart. Cut the end off, makes a good stirring stick. You want to make sure that you mix this very well. Don't mix it too vigorously because that will add air bubbles to your epoxy. More important on the last step with the 2-ton 24-hour epoxy. But make sure that all of your epoxies are equal parts and mixed very, very well. And once that's done, you're ready to coat the spoon minnow. A lot of times I'll coat the entire thing, really focusing on the edges right along there where the two nails are kind of glued together, and then looking for any gaps or holes that you might have. Once that epoxy dries, it'll fill in all those indiscrepancies and help it to swim properly. And once that's done, go ahead and put it on your spinner. That will ensure an even dry of the epoxy all the way around, so you won't have any major lumps or bumps or drips. And once you're done, once it's done drying, 5-minute epoxy is you're gonna be able to probably file it in a couple hours. It cures pretty quick, but it'll still remain tacky. So once it's fully dry, I'm gonna sand it. You can use a nail file, emery board, or some different grit sandpapers you can try. And all I'm doing is trying to, get the discrepancies out of that epoxy, make it nice and clean, any rough edges shaved down, and then I'm also going to clean up the eye and just make sure you've got a nice symmetrical body. If you don't, you can apply more epoxy and do that step again. But at this point, once it's sanded and clean, it's ready for paint. You can use paint, you can use nail polish. Most nail polishes are epoxy based, so really good colors that aren't going to fade. This is kind of a gold tan color that matches the tail. And sometimes if it's a thin nail polish, you might have to let it dry and do a second coat. But again, this is going to dry relatively fast, 15 minutes or so. You can put another coat on in probably 10 minutes. Then you can decide if you want to put eyes on it, and it's almost ready to be done. We're going to throw some eyes. The Fulling Mill, those new eyes from Fulling Mill are excellent. Just make sure you line them up where you want them. Stick them on. You don't have to use a super glue or anything because we're going to epoxy over top of the eye, whether you use a flat stick-on or a 3D kind of realistic baitfish eye like I've used here. Taking my DevCon 2-ton epoxy, that's one of the best finishing epoxies. It won't yellow over time. We use it on our cork bugs for smallmouth. You'll want to spin it and let it dry overnight for sure, but once you do, the fly's pretty much going to be bulletproof. I mean, after a couple of years of use, if you haven't lost it, you can just put another thin coat on. It'll shine it up, freshen it up, make it look almost like brand new, give it a couple more years of life. But these flies are very robust. That ultrasuede tail cannot tear or break, and the bodies on them are great. And these things swim amazingly well, catch fish amazingly well, and a lot of fun to fish, a lot of fun to put together.